Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are joining us from around the world. It's time for another set of six, the Federation of International Touch. Opportunity to reach out to all of our members around the world. And today we are joined by our friends in Ireland. And it's the top of the morning to the president, Aidan Sweeney, and a couple of board members as well, Michelle Mulcahy and Aisling McCaffrey. Well, welcome aboard, ladies and gents. Great to have you on board.
Good morning from us.
Morning.
So, as I said, another set of six all around the world. We've been traveling. I think you guys are our 23rd version of the chat. So, Peter, Aidan, sorry, let's give us a little bit of an idea about your background and how you come to join us.
Well, Ireland's touch is relatively new. We started in around 2006, and it was a very amateur kind of thing set up with a bunch of old fellas who had retired from rugby looking for something else to do. And we came across the touch game by accident, to be honest. We met a New Zealand lady called Christina Tuilagi who decided that she would take us under her wing and help us. So we created a number of social teams in Dublin and played the game for a number of years. And then our first real tournament was in 2008 in France, in the Euros, which was a bit chastening. But by 2010, we got our act together, and we actually won the mixed open in Bristol, and our over 40s won that tournament as well. So that gave us a grounding. It took a while before we've actually moved to the junior level, and if we hadn't have had the junior touch tournament set up in Europe, I think it would be even a bit longer to get the kids into the game.
Right.
But in the last 2 years, it's beginning to grow, and ironically, we're going to come to it shortly. But the pandemic has been interesting for us because through a partnership with the Irish Rugby Football Union, we got ourselves classified as a non-contact sport, which is allowed under various restrictions to be played by kids and older people as well. So it means that we can get onto a pitch long before anybody else. So the growth has gone from a bunch of old fellas having an excuse, to be honest, for a drink, to getting very well organized and up and running. And it's the influx of the newer members, which Aisling and Michelle are, that has kind of driven the diversification of the game from us grumpy old fellas to what it's going to be, I hope, in the next year or two.
Well, that is a great segue to get the ladies involved in the conversation as well. And that's the beauty of our sport, Aidan, that it is a game for everybody. And it is a very diverse group of people that we play with and against. And that's the beauty of our sport. But we've got Michelle and Aisling on screen now. So, Michelle, give us a little bit of an insight into the Michelle Mulcahy story.
Well, do you know what? I moved cities in 2013, and I ended up I created a touch team that would go to the World NBA World Cup because the boys are playing full contact rugby. So I actually, on purpose, found touch just by accident, got into a little bit of touch, played it poorly that year, but actually found the ITA after that. And actually, I've never looked back. I ended up going to Euros in 2014, and I've been a player or manager since then at Women's Open and maybe slightly more senior levels. So actually, it's been really great. It's a really inclusive sport is what I found. I'd never played touch rugby before. And I have to say, I've got a really broad group of friends now, from very young to slightly more mature.
I like it. I love the way you put that. Very diplomatic of you. But no, it is truly a game for everybody. And I say that my whole family have been involved. And I've told stories before about my sister's a much better footballer than I am. And I had to grow up telling everybody that. It's much to my chagrin. But anyway, we all have our crosses to bear. Aisling, let's have a listen to the Aisling McCaffrey story as well. Is it a similar journey to Michelle's?
It probably is, to be honest. I think I always was involved in sport from a young age, but I would say I kind of went away from it a little bit in college. Just did my own thing. Didn't play much team sport, and it was actually when I started working that there was a few different things flying around, and I just came across touch. I actually was playing that other form of non-contact rugby that we aren't allowed to mention. I played.
You can mention all sorts.
Play that with the guys know what I'm talking about. I played that with my work team, and I was really I just loved the kind of the coming back into the team sport. And for touch, for me, it was about, I find Sandymine, which is my club, and it was kind of getting back into that training element and like learning new skills and meeting new people. And yeah, that was probably back similar time to Michelle, actually around 2013. And then since that have played predominantly women's, a little bit more senior in the Euros, and then I was at the World Cup with Mixed Open, which was awesome. So yeah, just it's kind of taken over my life a little bit now, just in terms of kind of wanting to get involved in the coaching side and with the board on the kind of strategic side, and just really growing the sport. Like I just think it's such an inclusive game. It's amazing how it's like, as you're saying, brothers and sisters, parents, kids playing together, and like something that I can be playing hopefully for the rest of my days while I'm still walking. I just have such a love for the sport, really.
I'm sure we'll have an age category for you, no matter what your twilight years may be. That really truly is the beauty of the sport, as Aidan mentioned. And I guess from a sport development perspective, it's great that we have that, the older guard that are still involved, but to have people like yourself and Michelle joining us now, that change of blood, that new momentum that you guys can drive behind the sport is so important. And it's exciting to hear people like yourself talk the way you are about it.
And the other thing I'd say as well is just to add to that, like when I played touch, I also started playing full contact because I picked up touch and I enjoyed it so much. And I don't play full contact as much anymore, but like just the skills that I developed playing touch, like that's what brought me into rugby as opposed to taking me out of rugby, if you know what I mean. That it
absolutely
welcomed me into it. So
yep. And Aidan touched on the relationship with the IRFU. We'll go over that a little bit later on, but I might bring everybody back in and just, Aidan, you've already talked about the COVID pandemic and how it's affected the greater community of Ireland, and the journey that you guys are now on in coming back into play. Yeah,
it's one of the beauties of being as a partner of the IRFU is they have this huge medical structure within their association, so we can piggyback on that, and because they have helped us get recognised by Sport Ireland as a non-contact form of the game, of a sport, it really has. We can follow their COVID procedures and their cleaning procedures, and it gives us a credibility when we go to grounds and tournaments and stadiums that we are, because we're following the IRFU code, which is recognised by the government and by Sport Ireland. It makes life an awful lot easier, and it's also a lot easier too. One of the things we haven't mentioned is that schools in Ireland, and one of the reasons why a lot of people come to some sports later, is that schools in Ireland are still are segregated by gender. There's an awful lot more. There's an awful lot of single-sex schools. So, but at junior level, at primary level, and it's beginning to grow much more. That there's mixed schools, or when we say mixed schools, we mean mixed gender schools.
Yeah,
are now growing an awful lot. But there's not a lot of sports that a class can play during PE, or that hour or two that they have during the week. So it's been recognised by both ourselves and others that we can bring our sport much earlier into schools because of this, and because again of COVID, and because we're doing things correctly and recognised correctly, then it's accepted by more and more schools and headmistresses and games masters that we're doing the right thing. So it's hopefully, ironically, a kind of a large stepping stone for us to expand beyond our base,
Yeah, awesome. And how has that then affected, the Touch Island's approach to junior development? Has that really brought that on and accelerated that process?
Yeah, very much so. We're actually today, this afternoon, we're running in conjunction with the RFU a webinar to introduce the touch game to a lot of the school masters and coaching masters and development officers around the country, so that they can, and their primary target is because the first things that reopen will be the schools and the under 18 kids. They need sport for these guys, that they can get out on the pitch and for the next 3, 4, 6 months at least get into the game. So we're hoping that this will be the start of a reasonably good growth at the school level.
Yeah. And so we might bring the ladies back in just to give us a bit of an idea. We've had Aidan mention the single sex schools over there. Is it something that you're trying to target the female market to build the game, develop the game?
I think we're going back. We'll actually go across both. I suppose it depends on where you live in the country.
Yep.
We have a lot of mixed schools, but in the big city centres, it tends to be more single sex.
Okay.
So, and I suppose the other contender for us is our national sport is GAA, which is hurling and football.
Yeah.
So we've hurling, football, and rugby are probably and soccer are the top sports in Ireland. So we're really piggybacking on the full contact, that you don't have to play full contact. You can play a non-contact sport that's quite similar. That's actually very broad ranging. So I would actually hope that with COVID, given that non-contact is the way forward for at least the next couple of months, that we will attract an awful lot of people that are looking for just something different. So if the kids are being dropped off, will the adults join in a social game to start off with, and then ignite the interest, because it is a game for all age groups and all capabilities. You don't particularly have to be that good. You can just row in and enjoy it. So I would hope that from roots up, we can get the participation levels. Just its visibility at this point a lot of the time, because we do have other sports that are bigger at the moment, but the partnership with the IRFU is really exciting.
And Aisling mentioned it earlier on as well, that our game actually brought you into the full 15 contact side of it as well. And one of the things that's been born out of the conversations we've had around the world is that our game is complementary to other sports. It doesn't compete. It actually provides you with an excellent grounding in hand-eye coordination, agility, lateral movement, the ball passing skills that are a part of. So I think that's a real selling point as well, Aisling, and it was great that you touched on it, just how the game can introduce you to other sports.
Yeah, I think so, and it doesn't even limit itself to rugby. I think naturally, touch and rugby go together. I was so happy to be brought into the world of 15s. That honestly, I didn't grow up in. I'm from the north, so I didn't grow up in an environment where, if I speak about it from a female perspective, I didn't know any women that played rugby growing up. It wasn't even on my radar as a possibility of a sport that I would play. And like I'm delighted to see that that's changed over the last couple of years for sure. But definitely when I was growing up, it just wasn't on the radar. And it was amazing to play touch and then to actually see that as an option. And I had a couple of really good years playing rugby and going on tour and kind of pushing myself. And I've seen others, like we have players that are playing for us through touch that have represented Ireland at 15s, and it's just it's amazing to kind of see that, especially from a female perspective, to have that interconnectivity and just like to me it's a visibility piece and kind of opening up the options to see that like there's so many other options out there for you, and it is a potential pathway into representative sport and that. So it's not just limited to rugby. I think you're right, like there's a huge amount of crossover in terms of agility, fitness, hand-eye coordination. We totally agree.
Yeah, we it's interesting. We've just had a quite a large media release over here in Australia that one of our leading female soccer players or football players lost the love of the game, and she came and started playing social touch footy, and it was that social touch footy that made her reconnect and get the love back of team sport, as you said. And she's back on the international stage now as a footballer. So, it really is. That's perfect encapsulation there, where it's not just about the direct connection to rugby, or it's the greater aspect of the sport that we provide for everybody. And Michelle talked about it. You don't have to be a champion to play our game.
And I think that's something that's probably a little bit unique as well, because if you look across, I know from playing rugby, I would have found it difficult, if I was playing first team rugby, to then try and come out of that a little bit and play something a little bit more social. It was a bit difficult, whereas the beauty of touch is, you can be playing at a World Cup at the highest level, and then a couple of months later you could be heading off to a social tournament in Barcelona and living your best life here in Europe. So that's what I love about it, is that it's kind of, as Michelle said, it's a sport for all, but also for what you want to achieve in terms of, your level of playing, and you can do both. That's the best part.
I often talk about you can be aspirational or perspirational. This sport covers it for everybody. But okay, so we all know that internationally the borders have been closed, but you guys over in Europe have got a reasonably close connection to your neighbours that here in isolation in Australia we don't have. Being the world's largest island, just locked away over here in the Pacific. But there's some interesting moves afoot. The Autumn International Series. Michelle, tell us a little bit about that. We've got some footage we're going to introduce, but tell us a little bit about the International Autumn Series.
You've caught me on the hop. I actually don't know what you're talking about.
No, she does. Yeah, no, it was just that the up-to-date program was discussed last night. The idea has been to try and get an autumn series running to give our more elite guys a target that they could probably play some tournaments late in the summer, beginning in obviously training late in the summer and beginning to play in the autumn. So it's been simplified. We were hoping to get a number of European countries in, but COVID's kind of knocked a lot of that on the head. So at the moment, it's currently four nations: Ireland, Scotland, England, and Wales. And we are there at the moment, but we are running slightly behind the UK in vaccinations and rollout and that kind of thing. So unless we catch up, it'll be difficult for us to participate. But at the moment, the target is from the government that we should be able to do it. So it's looking that the mixed open, the men's open, and the women's open will play each other on 3 weekends in September, and we will host one here in Dublin, subject to COVID, as we say, and the others will be played in both England and I think it's in Bristol and in Manchester and one in Glasgow. So there'll be a kind of a round robin series, and we will just provide a target and a focus for our elite guys to put a bit of effort in and put the training in, and hopefully play at the end of the summer, beginning of autumn.
Okay, we've been sent some footage that might whet the appetite for all of our viewers in relation to the Autumn International Series. We might throw that up, Pete, if we can, and let's have a look what's ahead of us for that. Well,
Very
there
good.
you go. They're very, very
just for
slick
the-
production there, Aidan. But I do want to
Yeah.
point out, mate, before you talk, there wasn't a lot of the Irish in there, mate. I'm expecting to see more.
We kind of confused you there. The guys wearing the very dark green jerseys are actually us.
Yeah.
So we were there. All right. Yeah. But currently, our senior mixed, with the two girls are involved with, were our European champions. So we'll be competitive.
Absolutely. And with people like yourself driving and the girls, you know, really lifting up the performance there, I'm sure we'll see plenty more of the Irish in the footage that comes out of that tournament. And we'll bring the girls back in. Let's get everybody on the screen, because I know each and every one of you had a role to play at the 2019 World Cup over in Malaysia. Michelle, you were the driving force behind the whole contingent as the tour manager. But wow, wasn't that an amazing experience? The Touch World Cup in Malaysia. What impact did that have on the game in Ireland?
Do you know what? We took 5 squads, which is, I think, the most we've ever taken, right? And they were across all age ranges. We had open all the way to our 50s. And it was actually a fabulous experience because everybody got the opportunity to compete for a space to make the squads, and then actually to travel and just to see the breadth of countries that were there, and the competition between the different nations. And dependent on what age category you are, there was different, we'll call them enemies, competitors you wanted to beat. So it was really it actually really opened the eyes of the kind of touch community as to what was possible. And obviously the fact that it was in Malaysia where the weather's really nice, and that also was a nice little nugget, although I don't think we realized it was going to be as hot as it was, or at least as humid as it was, because we did have those couple of days where we had to shut down during the sun, and our lovely fair skin doesn't do all that well in the real hot heat. So we had extra things to think about. So as my role as team manager, it was, do you know what, I was making sure everybody was safe. The kind of game came slightly second for me at that point, but it was an excellent experience, and it really has set up the teams. They got really, when they came home, it was all about, we need to set up now for Europeans, and the Worlds will follow. Now, obviously, everything's a little bit delayed now with COVID, but you could see it gave everybody the kind of push to get organised and more structured, and hence our changes in the Irish Touch Association kind of mirror that we're getting more structured, more organised. We're making a concerted effort to grow and to expand and to be in a better position for the next set of big tournaments.
Awesome. And what about you, Aisling? What impact did it have on you as a player? And then, of course, as Michelle said, that drive to get involved and take it to the next level.
Yeah, I'm laughing at Michelle saying about the heat being lovely. It was certainly not lovely as a player. I did think I was going to die in the very first game. But I, like, from a personal perspective as a player, it was just unbelievable. Like, to go over and to see the level that the game was being played at, like the different styles, the different strategies, like it just blew my mind. Like, and you know, I was already like very, you know, involved in the sport and loved it, but just as Michelle said, kind of just opened my eyes to the possibilities, and also just like meeting people and connecting with people, having mates all over the world. You know, it's that side of it for me was amazing. And then I think in terms of, you know, the impact on our sport, like as Michelle was saying, the structure, I think bringing back kind of that knowledge and the strategies and trying to implement that across the clubs, definitely an uptake in numbers. And also probably one of the key things was the real push on the development of our women's open team. We didn't have a women's open team in the World Cup. There was a good few of us playing mixed open. And I think when we came back from the World Cup, there was probably a bit of a consensus, or there was at least a push from some of our younger players who were really the driving force behind it, that they weren't really getting to express themselves as much as they wanted in mixed, you know, in a kind of mixed scenario. And they really wanted to kind of push for that, and looked, we have a huge amount of amazing, talented female players. And I think the World Cup was definitely the catalyst for us putting a focus on that and trying to develop that part of our game as well. And I mean, the girls, I as a player had an unfortunate incident after the World Cup and dislocated my knee. But the rest of the girls went on. That women's open team trained over the summer. They headed off to the Permit, and they came back with a silver medal, which is our first ever women's open, medal. So like I think honestly for me as a player and as someone who loves the sport, that was one of the best things that I've seen as a direct result of the World Cup, I would say.
Yeah, it's amazing when you hear those stories and to know that, you know, as you said, it's a big tournament and there are a lot of people there from all around the world, that it can have that impact on a group of players then to get a direct result from it. That's awesome to hear those stories. So, yeah, it's great to have that insight, and thanks, Aisling, for that. So, Aidan, you're at the other end of the spectrum there.
Slightly.
So you were involved with the men's 50s. Give us a bit of insight onto what the guys took from the tournament and you know what they're doing in the game now.
Well, the men's 50s are an interesting group. They were the originators of touch, to be honest, in Ireland, and it hooked them very early. And they're now seriously looking at the over 60s. They started with the over 35s to the 40s to the 50s, and they're now looking at, some of them are looking at to the 60s as well. What it's done is it's brought back for them and unfortunately COVID's kind of emphasized this. It's got the camaraderie, the team focus that they kind of lost from their 20s, and to be able to go and go out and train with a bunch of fellas your own age, to interact with them, but a lot of people you probably business-wise and even socially you wouldn't normally meet. But you have this kind of really good solid link, and because we're a jokey group, the Irish in general, everybody seems to get on. So we've got a good mixture between literally all sorts, and they just don't want to give it up now. So they want to keep it going, and it's good because they also provide some business sense and sort of commercial sense, so that we can build on and feed back into the ITA to get it onto a better footing in the long run, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. And as you said, and you've touched on there, within your own group, being the jokey mob that just get on and you meet people from walks of life you wouldn't normally associate with. I think when you look across the international family of touch, that's also the same indication right through every level of the game in every country that we come to. And Aisling mentioned it, when you go to a World Cup event, or if it's a Euros or whatever it may be, you develop friendships from everywhere in the world that you never lose.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we have, I hate to say it, but we even have English friends, Welsh friends. So, it's, and with Brexit that happened last year, it would have been an interesting conversation with some of these guys, but because of touch, it doesn't get too serious.
Too serious.
Yeah, we don't want to break those friendships because we're still going to get on, and we're still going to travel, and we're still going to play each other, and we're still going to give out and slag each other, and so that's the nature of the game now.
That's awesome. We do have some viewers out there. I can tell you that you've got a lot of love around the world. We've had a comment from Simon Ince. Love the Irish touch setup, especially the dome training venue. I keep seeing it must be good, playing in the warm, dry, wind-free atmosphere. Wish we had one of those for England 50. So there you go. You've impressed your English cousins there.
Good.
And you're looking forward to having a run out against the Irish old boys soon. So
absolutely.
I don't know if that's a challenge or if that's just
It usually is, but generally it's a social challenge as well as a serious challenge. So they're always to look forward to.
The on-field and after-match function challenge is often thrown out there.
Wouldn't be the same without it. Wouldn't be the same.
And one of our viewers from South Africa, Labib Levy, how's it? Is there touch in the area of Munster? He's visiting there in May and will be keen for a catch-up that side.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's up to about this year. It was one of the areas that. And Michelle would know it better because she is from Munster. Was one of the areas that was a black spot, but because of the current rollout with the coordination with the RFU, we're getting a lot of very interesting clubs coming back to us. So we have one of the most scenic clubs in the country. We have is in Kinsale, and they are definitely going to be playing touched in the summer. And there's a couple of places around Limerick and in Shannon, which is a very famous club. Yeah. So they're all going to start up soon. So I think we'll have something for Labib when he gets here. Yeah.
So Labib, give you a bit of background on Labib. He's been instrumental in setting up touch in South Africa, coming on board in around the early 2000s. But he's also involved with the Stormers in the Super Rugby setup internationally in South Africa as well. So he brings with him a wealth of talent. And if he is in your neck of the woods, I would really suggest you reach out and.
Well, I can see why. If he's with the Stormers, I can see why he's going to Munster.
Yeah,
because there's a rainbow tournament coming up. So
there you go. So yeah, we'll do our best to put you in touch with Labib.
Absolutely.
While he's in the area, I'm sure he'd love to get involved with our Irish cousins as well.
Absolutely.
He's already responded and said good news. So there you go, Aidan.
Very good. No trouble.
Excellent. And our friend Greg Cropper too, speaking of England touch, he's on board, and I think that's a shout out for Labib as well, trying to organise a side visit while Labib's in the area. So it all happens here on the set of six. We're happy to be the conduit of those connections.
There's no direct flights to Ireland yet, so I think Greg knows he has to drop off. And
he has to drop in.
Drop off. Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough. So yeah, just going back to, I think it was Michelle mentioned earlier on about where touch sits in the sporting community within Ireland. How do we change our place? What do you think are some of the things that you might engage the community in just driving that touch football up the ranks?
Yeah, I think it's going to fall on both Michelle and Ashley more than me, I'd say, in the future.
Yeah.
But if we can get the participation up to the levels that we hope to get them, like we're looking to kind of literally treble our participation membership over the summer. We've already started that. We only have about a dozen official touch clubs, but we've had applications now for treble that number coming up in the next few weeks. So we've got to latch on to that. And Michelle, as chair of the board now, will be driving that specifically in the next couple of weeks. So she might be able to answer it a bit better than myself.
So
that's really what we're hoping. The fact that everything is non-contact and will be for the next while is really advantageous to us, and it's the visibility from the IRFU. They have the platform, so we're kind of hopping on it. We're leveraging we've some really good coaches out there, really, really strong volunteers that are really passionate about it and are driving the agenda. And we just need to keep motivating everybody to keep doing what they're doing, because actually we're going in the right direction now, and we would hope that we would have a lot more clubs by the end of the year, and we'll have a lot more people actively playing and participating in the sport. So it's actually just a really exciting time. We would have thought, while we can't play on the pitches at the moment, in the background it's allowed the other bits to get the structures to get in place and to kind of push the longer term agenda.
Yeah.
So hopefully now, fingers crossed for the next couple of months.
And during the isolation, were there any strategies that you engaged in to develop these relationships, or did the IRFU come to you looking for that support and that connection to the non-contact sport?
Aidan probably knows the history a lot more than I do, but the partnership has been there for a couple of years. But because non-contact has become the way back into sport, it has really shone a light on the opportunity that the sport presents, and the fact that it's male and female is very attractive to sports, because it brings a broader population. So it's actually a bit of both. I think the ITA have been quite active in nurturing that relationship and bringing it along, and the IRFU are now seeing the opportunity as well. So it's kind of a symbiotic relationship, is what we'll call it. It's going to serve both purposes quite well.
And it goes back to what we were saying with Aisling earlier on as well about the complementary aspect of our sport. It's not a competitor directly against rugby, and I think that they acknowledge that and embrace our style, our side of the game, and what it can bring to their own at every level is so important. So, yeah, kudos to your organisation and for the people behind it to really promote that aspect of the game. So fantastic. I might just generally throw it out there. What are some of the high level goals for Island Touch in the years ahead?
I think in terms of, so at the moment, like as a board, we're obviously going through kind of our process of looking at our governance and how that all works and our vision. And like in terms of our pillars, you know, like for us really, it's, as we've been discussing here, is to promote the game. So the game itself, the game of touch, get the profile up, increase the kind of accessibility, and to the people know what we're talking about. And obviously we have a huge opportunity at the moment, using the RF platform to really leverage that, get it out there so people have a good understanding of what the game's about. Then, you know, it's increasing kind of the participation, so getting the numbers in, getting people playing, increasing our numbers across all aspects of the game. And then really the growing that, so growing, we've got to get the numbers in, growing kind of the quality of our game through our players, our referees, our coaches, and really kind of nurture that kind of relationship piece there. So like that's kind of it, the promote, participate, grow. That's what we're looking forward to. Really.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And Aidan, you talked about, you know, that end of the spectrum where you're at, the importance of those people staying involved in the game and bringing back some of that business acumen and the support mechanisms there.
Yeah, it is important because you need a kind of some sort of commercial reality to be able to fund what you want to do. We need to get the coaches and the referees and the facilities up to spec so that we can keep the guys that we attract in the couple of months. So the older heads have the contacts. Even within the IRFU, for example, the older people would have contacts at the higher levels within the IRFU, and we're lucky at the moment, for example, that we have a number of Australians involved with the IRFU. So David Nucifar is the director of rugby, but there's Andy Friend runs Connacht. Stephen Larkin is coach in Munster. So these guys know what touch can do for their game as well, and that's why there's quite a good relationship between. We've got a push from the top in the RFU as we're pushing from the bottom up. So it's good, and they, as I say, it's as Michelle says, it's symbiotic. They just want people to go to their clubs and play. And we want to take it from there.
It sounds like a similar relationship to what we've established here in Australia with the NRL, the rugby league version of the game. It is very symbiotic. We're bouncing off each other, sharing resources, tapping into that promotional aspect. And we've had another comment from Simon. So this is an interesting comment that he's thrown in here, that the RFU made their own touch game up when contact wasn't allowed. They didn't embrace the established version.
Yeah, we were very worried about that initially, but because of the relationship we have built up over the years, that the people involved, we actually started off through the referees, believe it or not, and that association has moved on. So the RFU, for example, don't coach at the moment underage referees, so they get to learn their skills on a pitch from us in controlling and commanding a game and that kind of, and they get the confidence, and then if they want to, they can move into the IRFU scheme when they're 17 and 18. So that's kind of started it off. But they came back to us and they were quite clear on what they wanted. They wanted participation in their clubs, but that once the game moved out of a club, so inter-club games, inter-provincial games, international games, that's all ITA, and we're to run that. And you know.
Perfect. It sounds like a great setup, and to have, you know, people like yourself that have been there at the forefront of the development of the game, and then to have the introduction of people like Michelle and Aisling and, you know, the other people that couldn't join us here tonight that are driving that change at board level, it just sounds so exciting from a development and promotional prospect of our sport to be involved in something like that in this chat tonight. It's just reinvigorating. I think it's really important to hear that new blood.
Well, yes, because if you've seen our amateur, shall we call it, for better choice of words, association setup, there was an awful lot of grey hairs or lack of hair involved with the setup. So this last year or so has been great to get the addition of you say the new blood and the new people in, and their enthusiasm kind of takes over from the skeptics that are still around, you know.
But it was a really interesting point I think you made, that it's important that whilst you've got that that new impetus at board level, you've also got to create the structures. You've also got to put the officiating and make sure that can keep pace with the way the game grows, to make sure that your facilities can bring and accept the new people that come into the game. Because if you don't present at the top as well in those aspects, the players that you do promote are going to say, well, why would I bother? So it's very interesting insight to hear that.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, I think this is the drive that Aisling and Michelle bring, the structure below that. We've recognised that we need to have new clubs, new facilities, but we also need to get the coaches and the referees up to speed. So this summer now will be critical, and we have good referees and coaches to help us boost it up and get the numbers up, you know. So it's hard work though.
Absolutely, it is hard work, but it sounds like you've got great people there behind you. And, you know, let's face it, it's a relatively young game in Ireland. The way you've spoken about it, I have to be totally honest, and I thought it had been around a little bit longer than that because of how you present on the international stage and the teams and the people that I've met from Ireland at those international events. It just seems like you've been around so much longer. So that's the impact you've had on the game for somebody that's been around since I was in nappies. So, yeah, it's you've done a lot of amazing things in a very short period of time. So kudos and hats off to our friends over there in Ireland.
We've been also a little bit lucky in that once the older generation started it off, it's interesting to see we have these Michelle and Aisling. We have these kind of lock-up games on Sundays and Wednesdays where you just turn up and play, and you can get the age profile running from, you know, the grandchild at 13 to granddad at 71, and it's something that nobody really has seen before. So, but it keeps everybody active and keeps everybody driving it forward.
Yeah, beautiful. And you know, we've had, as I said, a lot of people around the world are watching, and just to hear those stories about the World Cup and the personal impacts that it had on how it's, you know, developed and really pushed that growth of the game. It's so enlightening to see. And I just hope that people that are watching it tonight or that watch it, you know, in replay down the track, because this chat is available on YouTube and on Facebook. And I know that in the 22 other versions that we've had, people have gone back afterwards and had a look, and you get some follow-on comments. But I just want to put it out there to anybody that's, when the borders reopen and the planes start flying and vaccinations taken over and control of this pandemic, if that is, you know, what happens, visit Ireland and put something into the game over there, because it's exciting. I think it'd be invigorating for you as well if you're in that area, like Labib is mentioning. It doesn't matter if you're a player, whatever level you're at, if you're an official, if you're an administrator, just when you go to Ireland, tip your hat and make yourself known and just get involved over there, because these people sound like they're really taking the game forward. So that's my little personal promotion that I'll put out there. And if I'm ever in the neck of the woods, you can guarantee you'll hear from me. And just kudos to Michelle and Aisling and also Aidan over there, because it's exciting times in Ireland. I think everybody watching would agree. And of course, you guys will open your arms to visitors when that all starts happening again.
Very good for maybe a drink afterwards.
Yes.
We're known for being a nation of 1,000 welcomes. So yes, for sure, I'll always look after any travellers that come over.
Beautiful. That's what I've been led to believe. I've never been lucky enough to visit. I've got lots and lots of Irish friends, and yeah, it's always a place that I have wanted to visit. So one day you'll have the big fella in your neck of the woods. Yeah, I'm not a big drinker, but I do enjoy a good party. So
Great.
I'm sure will be great. So, ladies and gents, we might wrap it up there. It's been a great chat. Is there anything anybody wants to add before we leave? Any final words you might want to throw out there to our viewers?
As you said before,
no, I just say come and play touch, come and get to know us. It's going to be a great opportunity over the next couple of months. If you're playing rugby, or if you haven't played rugby, or if you just want to get to know a little bit about the sport, get in touch with us. We'd love that. We want to boost our numbers, and there's essentially something for everyone, no matter what level you want to play at.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and we have clubs in some really scenic parts of Ireland. We have a club in Westport, just below Croagh-Patrick. It's a fabulous place to go. As I said, Kinsale is a lovely spot. Some good clubs in around Limerick and Kerry too, Michelle, aren't there?
There is. And if they want to see the capital, we have a couple in Dublin as well, which everyone seems to like to see. But there's nicer parts of the country than Dublin.
Well, one of the good things about Dublin is you can actually play right in the heart of Dublin in Trinity College. So it's the oldest university in Ireland. It's also the oldest rugby ground in Ireland, and they allow us play touch on the main pavilion pitch. So you're more than welcome to join in.
A lot of history. That's awesome. Well, once again, thank you very much, Aidan. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Aisling, for joining us on the Federation Set of Six. It's been a fantastic opportunity to have a chat with you and just learn a little bit about the game in Ireland. And I'm excited about what I've heard and the direction you guys are taking it in. So, as I've said before, respect and kudos to you for what you're doing for our great sport over there in Ireland. And I personally look forward to being able to visit and experience that land of 1,000 welcomes that Aisling talked about. So thanks very much, ladies and gent. And that'll wrap up another Set of Six for the Federation of International Touch. We look forward to bringing you another version sometime very soon. And bye for now.